Of all the famous lost artifacts yet to be found, Noah's Ark tops the list in the minds of many. Researchers have proposed one reason why Noah's Ark may not be found on Mount Ararat. Please stay tuned, let's get started. From one end of the world to the other, everyone is fascinated by the story of Noah and the Ark. The fact that so many great civilizations and cultures have ancient flood stories makes this all the more unsurprising and, in my view, lay credence to the story of Noah and the Ark. Though distorted in details, many of these stories seem to reflect the true account in Genesis chapter 6 to 9. God's words clearly states that the ark landed on the mountains of Ararat on the 150th day of the flood, Genesis chapter 8, verse 4. By that stage, the waters had prevailed to cover the whole earth, Genesis chapter 7, from verse 19 to 24. The ocean flood waters did not retreat until the ark landed safely. However, the volcano now called Mount Ararat did not grow until well after the ocean flood waters had retreated. In addition, the lavas and ash layers of Mount Ararat date to the time of post-flood ice age. This is consistent with Mount Ararat being built after the flood on top of a dry plateau. Mount Ararat is thus a post-flood volcano which continued to erupt most recently less than 200 years ago. The Bible clearly states that the ark landed on the mountains of Ararat, not Mount Ararat. Hence, focusing the search for Noah's Ark only on Mount Ararat may not yield the desired results. Here is why I recommend you keep watching for more details. God's word is absolutely true in every detail because God is the author. That is the whole essence of "Your word is true" in Psalm chapter 119, verse 160. Even without finding the ark, there is overwhelming geologic evidence the flood occurred just as God's word describes. This attraction is also bringing people in droves from around the globe to the life-sized ark replica at the Ark Encounter in northern Kentucky. At the same time, several teams have continued the search for the real ark. Most of them have focused on Mount Ararat in northeastern Turkey, where eyewitness accounts of a wooden structure have spurred interest for centuries. With such a large vessel and so much interest, why hasn't it been found up till now? Perhaps we need to look again at the account in God's word. It says that the ark landed on the mountains of Ararat on the 150th day of the flood, Genesis chapter 8, verse 4. This was a region, not a single mountain. Also, explorers have overlooked the geological makeup of this region in their age-old quest for Noah's Ark. How were the rocks and strata in this region formed and changed during the flood and in the years afterwards? The biblical reference to mountains of Ararat as the landing site of the ark suggests that those mountains formed well before the flood ended. The flood was a global catastrophe that totally reshaped the Earth's geology, and the Earth's surface has continued to change since then. Perhaps the geology of the modern Mount Ararat region shed light on whether we should be looking for Noah's Ark on that mountain. Since the 1800s, several dozen expeditions have scaled Mount Ararat in hopes of finding evidence of Noah's Ark, and more are planned even in the future. Satellite imagery and aerial photographs have generated interest in several sites. Most excursions are focused on a handful of locations based on earlier reported sightings. A U.S. Air Force reconnaissance plane took black and white images of the northwest side of Mount Ararat in 1949, revealing a large object that resembles a portion of a ship. The images were made public in 1995 and sparked further interests. Let's examine the volcano and geology of Mount Ararat. Mount Ararat is technically known as a stratovolcano, that is, A cone-shaped volcano which builds progressively from a central vent that erupts many times and deposits successive layers of lavas and volcanic ash on the flanks of the growing edifice. Modern Mount Ararat actually consists of two stratovolcanoes, Greater Ararat and Lesser Ararat, that rise above a high plain which is itself over 5,000 feet above sea level. The summit of Greater Ararat is 16,854 feet above sea level, while Lesser Ararat, just 8 miles to the east, is only 12,782 feet in height. Together, they cover a massive area of 420 square miles and have been estimated to consist of a whopping 280 cubic miles of lavas and volcanic ash. But when was this formed? It is a dormant volcano today, but it was active until recently. A steam blast eruption and volcanic ash flew open on the upper north flank of Greater Ararat on July 2, 1840, accompanied by an earthquake of estimated magnitude 7.4. The cloud of steam and ash and a humongous landslide utterly devastated a monastery and villages in their path. Earlier Ararat eruptions are known from oral history and archaeological excavations. These occurred in about AD 1783 and 1450, around 550 BC, and another time even earlier. Glacier and avalanche have eroded canyons in the flanks of the volcano, exposing its internal layers and enabling geologists to do detailed fieldwork to establish when and how Mount Ararat was formed. The volcano grew in 4 major stages: the pre-cone, the cone building, climatic, and flank eruption phases. At its base is a 2,300-foot thick sequence of volcanic ash layers deposited by violent eruptions during the pre-cone phase. Then, eruptions from 2 central vents, spewing some 1,800 feet of lava and volcanic ash flows, burned the 2 cones. In the climatic phase, lava flowed copiously to add another 2,700 feet or 820 meters to the cones. Finally, lava and volcanic ash erupted from cracks in the flanks. But what rocks are underneath Ararat's volcanoes? Again, careful fieldwork has demonstrated that many layers of earlier volcanic rocks spread right across the whole Erzurum Karst Plateau of eastern Turkey. Many violent eruptions had to take place before Mount Ararat was built on top of this plateau. But what happened under the volcano? Mount Ararat is a young volcano located in a very unstable region. Underneath and surrounding it is a huge plateau that formed when colliding tectonic plates caused massive lava flows to cover more than 20,000 square miles. Ararat is only 1/50th of this area, which arose later. Could Noah's Ark really be here? Deep under Mount Ararat are thousands of feet of flood sediments, filled primarily with marine fossils from the destruction of life in the ocean and on land. These are similar to flood layers we find all over the earth. Above the flood layers are thick lava flows. These covered the region sometimes after the flood waters drained off the earth. The belt of over a few years, and included between the floors are thin deposits of localized lake sediment with fossils of buried freshwater fish. Mount Ararat is a stratovolcano which arose sometimes after lavas had covered the region. Beneath these volcanic layers is a thick sequence of rocks that formed when ocean waters flooded the area and laid down sediment filled with billions of ocean creatures. The lower section of this sequence of sedimentary layers has fossils similar to other Devonian Permian layers, which creationists believe were deposited globally early in the flood. Above them are Mesozoic layers, which were deposited later in the flood, at the same time as the dinosaur fossils. After Noah's Ark had landed and the flood waters had retreated, volcanic eruptions spread lava across the region and then built Mount Ararat on top. The lavas of the Erzurum Karst Plateau were deposited on top of these sedimentary layers and are more recent, confirming that this plateau was formed post-flood and are minor localized sediment layers containing continental land fossils deposited by local freshwater rivers and lakes. These sediment layers were deposited between the many lavas and formed the plateau. Deposition had almost finished before Mount Ararat began to grow above the plateau. Mount Ararat was thus not built underwater. That means the ocean waters had already retreated from off eastern Turkey and Noah's Ark had landed before Mount Ararat was built. So, do you think Noah's Ark might be buried deep within Mount Ararat? Let us know in comment section. Don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel and enable notification for more insightful videos like this. For more biblical archaeology, please click on the playlist here.